Alright, y'all, I'm back. This is around the time where I'm actually hearing people go through my mailbox. Okay, there was an instance where it was like around 12:30 midnight. 12:30. No, that's not true. It was between 5 and 6:30 in the morning. I am hearing keys jingling, but not so much keys. I'm hearing someone attempting to pry open a mailbox. Okay. And what I would do was I would open my door. Now I live in a garden style apartment. So what that is they're set up like townhouses where you can just literally, walk up. It's like a walk up, right? For those who don't know what garden style apartments are, feel free to look on Google. But I'm literally hearing but what I'm hearing is the mailbox, someone trying to pry open the mailbox. I am opening my door as this happens. So I can already smell the weed from downstairs, from whoever was trying to pry open this mailbox. I then remember closing the door, then I would hear them go at it again. I would open the door and I would hear them stop. So that told me that the people downstairs were doing something that they knew that they shouldn't have been doing. And out of fear of being caught, they would stop every single time I would open the door. I did this probably like 5 or 6 times just to make sure I wasn't bugging. Literally, every single time I opened the door, they would stop. I'd close the door, they would go back to trying to pry opening. So then finally I just opened the door. I was going downstairs. As I was going downstairs, I heard the person go outside, and then I found one of those hinging tools. Okay, hinging tools to try to pry open a mailbox. So then for me, that was confirmation that what I thought was going on was actually going on as far as people prying into my mailbox. I have created so many reports, it's not even funny. I went to the property management, and I remember one of the ladies, her reasoning was there are people who get evicted and they're trying to come back and get their mail. So they're trying to open and pry up their mail. And I'm like, you do realize this is a federal offense, right? So I don't care if they got evicted. I don't care if they got kicked out. No one should be coming in trying to open up a mailbox where they no longer live. Okay? But that is what she told me at the time. Okay? This is also around the time where my computer was hacked. My work computer, my personal computer laptop, okay? My phone devices were hacked. This is where people, when I say hacked, I'm talking about literally coming into my house to hack my laptop and my phone. And you're probably like, well, who would do this? Why would it be done? Well, it turns out it was somebody part of maintenance. Now, normally I wouldn't disclose names, but I'm going to disclose this one. And the reason why is because this name is a name that he provided for employment, but it is not his government name. He goes by Craig. Okay. Now, he was part of maintenance who was employed by my apartment development. Okay. He was the one that actually came and hacked my computer, hacked my devices, and inserted cameras into my apartment. Okay. Now, at the time, I didn't know that cameras were inserted. This information came to me in maybe towards the end of, this information came to me in 2024. Okay. Spirit kept on telling me that there were devices in my apartment, like listening devices and cameras, in my apartment. And I would, take a look to see, okay, where could these cameras be? And then after a while, I was just like, "Ugh, I'll figure it out later." You know what I'm saying? But I found the cameras were put into my apartment in 2023 by maintenance. Okay. Maintenance of this apartment building. Now, this is also how they were also keeping track of what was on my computer. Okay. Meaning like what wasn't on the internet, but what was on my computer, saved on my computer. Okay. There's so much, y'all. It's not even funny. It's not even funny. On top of that, there was a woman. There was a woman. At first, it was a woman. Not at first. There was a woman. There was an incident where it was late at night, and I heard a woman screaming at the top of her lungs. I remember police coming. I remember the ambulance coming. I remember the fire truck coming. This happened the street behind me. It was pretty late. The person was screaming at the top of their lungs. You hear me? And it looks like when they found out that she was okay, that they were going to take her into custody, like the cops. And she had put up so much of a fight, yelling and screaming. She was back like in a wooded area. I was in the bathroom looking through my window, looking at all of what was going on. Spirit had shared with me that she was in the back in the wooded area, spying and stalking on me with night goggles and a binocular. And one of the neighbors had caught her and called the police. Okay. Spirit had also told me that this wasn't the only time that people were spying on me with binoculars in the back of my apartment in a wooded area. Now, the reason why this is important is because this woman, I had no idea what she looked like. I was only able to identify how she screamed because it was like a blood-curdling scream. There was another incident in the back of my apartment where I heard a blood-curdling scream. So I knew, I was able to identify that whoever that was the second time was the same person the first time. I ended up calling the police, okay, because there were too many times where I constantly hearing people in the back of my apartment, which happens to be a wooded area, okay? So, and the times that I would hear any type of noise usually went from between 10 p.m. and like between 3 a.m. So I would call the police just to survey the area. I'll have you know, shortly after of me calling the police to survey the area, I go to the property management to inform them what happened, to inform them, that I called the police because I heard, noise in the back. But that wasn't the first incident. Prior to that, I had caught a man literally in the back of my apartment, the street behind my apartment, peeking through my windows, okay? And so because of those few instances, I went to speak to property management. They had informed me that they needed a police report. But shortly after, what they ended up doing was they told me of a plan to have a cop on site. So that way that if I were to ever call the police, there would be a dispatcher. He would be the person to be dispatched and come to the scene, because this particular cop was on site. What I would later find out was the cop was hired and was paid by the people who were gang stalking me. Okay, there's a reason for this. So that when I call, or if I call, any of my complaints would be dismissed. Okay, would not be followed up on. But at first, I was super excited because I felt like I would feel more safe living where I am. But when Spirit had told me that, nah, the cop that they're employing is actually on their payroll, and it is a way to dismiss whatever complaints that you have. I don't know about any of the future cops that came along the way, but I know that first cop was definitely on their payroll. Okay, gang stalking payroll. Okay, paid to look the other way. Okay, when it comes concerning complaints as far as with me. But back to the young lady. So the young lady who got caught and got taken in, she also was the same young lady who I had noticed in an apartment building as I was taking the trash out in the dumpster. She also was the same young lady that I was on the train headed to Philadelphia. From DC to Philadelphia. She was the same young lady. Y'all keeping up? So that's 1, 2, 3. The woman who was screaming, who got booked by the cops, was the same woman who I saw in the apartment building, and she had lifted up her blinds as I went to take out the dumpster. It's the same woman who was on the train from me traveling to Philadelphia. And she is the same woman that even traveled to even traveled to Florida when I took a trip down in Florida in 2023. And you're probably like, are you sure she was the same woman? Yes, the fuck I am sure. Okay, I could pinpoint her out. And here's the crazy thing. Spirit had told me, actually, Spirit came to me and showed me a vision. The first vision that they showed me was a mouth. The first vision that they showed me was a cat who had a mouse in their mouth, bringing it in front of me and dropping it. Okay, this was actually a cat spirit. Cat spirit literally walked in. I know the sound. Cat spirit literally walked in front of me, had a mouse in their mouth, dropped it in front of me. I had to look up and see what that meaning was because I don't own any cats. And through my research, I realized that that's a behavior of cats, of essentially gifting you something like here, right? So I'm thinking, okay, that's weird. Well, what are they gifting me? Next thing you know, the video that pops up on my timeline is the same woman who had followed me down to Florida, okay, by my people's houses, okay. The same woman who had lifted up the blinds and had saw me as I was putting the trash in the dumpster. The same woman who was outside my apartment not once but twice screaming at the top of her lungs. And the reason why I could identify her is because the video I saw, the woman was screaming the same exact way as she did outside, and Spirit had given me her first name, and the woman what they were calling her was her first name. It matched, and the woman was located in Maryland. Okay, so all of these things fit like a puzzle to me. Talk about a fucking psychic investigator. That's what I have become. Using my spiritual gifts and my ability to communicate with spirit, I had become a fucking psychic investigator, okay? So I had identified that I said, okay, she's part of that crew. Now, at first, I literally thought that it was only like the baby mama and her friends. You know what I'm saying? On some rah-rah stuff. Let me try to imitate it. Like some young petty shit. I had no idea that it was much bigger, much larger than a group of 20-something-year-olds trying to scare somebody or do some petty ass shit. Because this is when military got involved. This is when the government got involved within my gang stalking, experience. This is when law enforcement got involved. This is when I realized that shit is much bigger. I'm thinking it's a small scale. These people ain't got no motherfucking money to be doing all this, and that. And I realized that, nope, I stand corrected. When you're paying private investigators because there were a couple that had reached out to me. Okay, you're paying private investigators to do research on me. I'm hearing drones. I'm hearing helicopters. Okay, you're hiring policemen. Okay, law enforcement. There are cameras that are being put into my home. Who the fuck gave you authority to put cameras in my home, to mirror screen my phone, to hack my computer, not only my personal computer, but my work computer? I would eventually come to find out that it was a judge who granted this. Okay? A judge who granted this. Also, the whole DMV was wiretapping all of my electronic devices. That's when it fucking clicked to me that this is way bigger than what I thought was just like way bigger. Okay? There were messages that were there were messages that were being removed from my email. They would block out my business prospects, my business partnerships. So at the time, I was transitioning from my web design and graphic design business, and I was starting my spiritual business, because this forced me to figure out ways on how to alchemize energy, how to heal myself mentally, emotionally, and physically. This forced me into that, to find out different ways that would work for me so that I can help others, okay? But first I had to help myself through this bullshit that I was experiencing. This forced me into learning different ways, methods on protection, on healing, on alchemizing, which is how Nomadic Shaman came to be, okay? Now, it's so much. It's so much. I wrote notes, y'all, because I'm trying not to go off key or off tangent. But this is also when I found out that not only were they following me, they were following my friends and my family. But my friends and my family would share with me incidences of what they were experiencing. But for them, it would be like, oh, that's strange. I don't understand why that would happen. Or why this person walking in front of my neighborhood like that? Don't nobody walk up in my neighborhood like that. And Spirit automatically told me that it was an extension of the gang stalking. Okay? So that was another thing, where, how do I say it? Some people who may be quick to say, well, why don't you move? Why don't you move? Why don't you move? Well, where I moved, they were moving. Okay. And they had all of my information prior to me even moving because all of my stuff was hacked. They were into my bank accounts, my credit card accounts. There were times where I specifically ordered credit reports. I ordered a Lexus report that essentially provided you all the information connected to like your social security number. And you had to put in special coding in order that would come in the mail in order for you to type it in the computer through their web in order to access that report. Gone. Settlement checks that I was expecting, gone. Okay. Important mail documents, gone. Okay. I lost count how many times I put in reports. And at this time, your girl, I didn't trust the police. I'm going to say it just like that. Because I didn't know who was part of the ops. I didn't know. There were times where so many times that I had put in reports and it was like dismissed. It wasn't followed up on. At this point, I didn't trust shit. The only people that I trusted was myself, my cousin, because she's another spiritual girl, in spirit, to guide me on how to navigate this. So my timer just stopped. So let me stop right here and I'll go into the next video. All right.